let's start from the top in terms of sort of a 30,000-foot view. And this is going to be a very general, very simple question, but I want you to go with it wherever you want. What is the current mood of the Russian population when it comes to this conflict with Ukraine?
Oh, if we're talking about right now, in August, late August of 24, after Ukrainians rolled into Russian territory, I can't really call it invasion. I call it the special military operation that Ukraine is conducting on Russian soil. So once that started happening, Russians have started waking up and getting angry. And this is the sense that, this is the feeling that I'm getting in Russia.
Is there I guess when it comes to dissemination of information, look, I'd argue that here in the U.S., we all have way too much access to immediate information and opinion, and everyone's become a journalist. Obviously, with this, if we look at the incursion into Kursk as an example, like depending on who you talk to, maybe a couple 100,000 people have been evacuated from the area. So clearly they know about it. But the people in Moscow, for instance, and other parts of Russia, are they aware of the extent of this incursion into Russian territory by the Ukrainian military?
Well, first of all, there are two Russias, not one. One Russia is Moscow and St. Petersburg, and the second Russia is the rest of Russia. And if we're talking about Moscow and St. Petersburg, life is well there, People still have jobs. People, their lives are peaceful. They are doing well compared to the rest of Russia. And there's not much of a difference after the Ukrainians rolled in. Perhaps there is, but not as visible as in the rest of Russia, because in the rest of Russia, especially in the western part of Russia, the central Russia, people all of a sudden realize that something is very majorly wrong is happening. And the government isn't doing much about it. They're just keeping quiet. But, like you said, a couple 100,000 people have been displaced. More than that. Official information is 121,000, but I never trust Russian officials. At least double that, perhaps triple that. Okay, people are running, and they're screaming. They're very loud, and you can't really silence them. You can't sugarcoat them. And they're becoming, this information is becoming more widespread, and it's definitely given a lot of food for thought of Russians. I would say that this is the new stage in the history of Russia. The Russian people have started waking up, or at least started thinking and asking questions. What the heck is going on,
Mm-hmm. Is there a sense of fatigue among the general population over this conflict? Or is there a sense of resignation and, look, this is going to happen, we can't influence it, so we just need to worry about our own selves and, putting food on the table and taking care of the kids, that sort of thing? Or I guess the big question that I'm trying to get to here is there a concern by Putin that he could be losing the population in terms of popular opinion?
There is fatigue, definitely, and it's growing. Okay, and it just increased its speed. As of for Putin, I don't really think he cares about Russian population. He has absolutely different goals, and he has different means of reaching goals. And population is not his concern. I think he's much more concerned of macroeconomic problems that Russia is facing right now, with Turkey, China, and the U.S. sanctions, increasing U.S. sanctions. And I think, that's my opinion, he's very afraid of political fight inside the elites. That someone will be trying to take on him, on his power, to topple him.
How effective, in your opinion, are these sanctions at this point on the economy? What sort of impact are they actually having on people's everyday lives inside Russia?
They have, they've how do I say that? They've had a very slow start. Of course, lots of sanctions. Russia became the most sanctioned country in the history of humankind in 2022. And tons of questions were, tons of sanctions were placed, all kinds of sanctions, economic, athletics, cultural, scientific, I think that a lot of them were not effective, but 2 years later, the United States started taking it seriously, okay? And in the last 6 months, say a little more, 8 months, we're seeing the effects. The secondary sanctions are right now the silent killer of Russia and its economy, and everyone in Russia starts feeling them. I'm just going to give you 2 examples. Well, 3 examples, really. It's like showcases. First of all, Russian oil trade is declining, and that is bread making of Russia. Okay, I'm not talking about natural gas. It's almost shut down, okay? But oil, that's what has been keeping Russian economy alive for all this 2.5 years. Number 2, the international trade, the trade with Turkey has shut down completely. After the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken visited Turkish banks, Turkish business elites, and warned them that if they keep on doing business with Russians, then they might fall victims as well. And that's it. They just shut off Russia off their, you can't transfer money to Turkey. Therefore, you cannot buy anything from Turkey. And the Chinese started doing the same only a few weeks later, mid-February, okay? And these 3 things are really putting tremendous, I can't even say stress, tremendous damage to the economy. So they're working. They were late, but they started working pretty darn well.